Hello, everyone, and welcome to KTAL News Now. I'm your host, Anthony Mocklin, and today is Wednesday, and that means it is Wellness Wednesday here at KTAL News Now, where we will be diving into some health topics and tips to apply to your life to live a happier and healthier lifestyle. This upcoming weekend is Halloween, so we'll have plenty of tips if you're going trick-or-treating or going to a party and you plan on drinking. There's a lot of safety tips that you need to know. But first off, before we get into that, if you're a parent, you know that diapers can be really, really expensive for your babies. And a local nonprofit here in the area called Basic Necessities is providing diapers as well as period products for women to those in need. And KTAL's Lynn Vance has more on that.
That helps so much. I don't know what we would do if it wasn't for Basic Necessities.
Basic Necessities is a diaper bank serving 18 Arklatex parishes and counties. They provide diapers and period products to people at no cost who are experiencing economic challenges.
A lot of people don't know about the program, so that's why I tell people, like, those diapers do not last long.
They help families when they need it most.
If you lose your job, if you fall on hard times, if you up and move, house fire, whatever the situation is, we're here to fulfill that gap of where do I go to, where do I get diapers from, I have no money right now. What's the first and last name of the child?
Alex told us even the less expensive diapers are around $20 a box, and this helps her family budget.
It helps us to be able to afford our bills and to hopefully be able to take the kids to do something now and then to get them out of the house.
They accept donations of unused diapers, period products, and adult incontinence products. They will also accept any baby-related products like formula or strollers, but they do not always have such things in stock.
When we had a twin stroller here and it was dirty, she said, ma'am, she said, I do not care. She took that stroller, she said, I clean it up. And that's what she did. So we help a lot of people.
You can always drop off donations. They are located in the Highland Center. Lynn Vance, NBC6.
And you can find more information about Basic Necessities on our website at ktalnews.com. But another thing that families are there's this impending SNAP cut that is coming on November 1st due to the government shutdown. And as that government shutdown continues, a food bank in East Texas is doing what they can in case something like that happens. And like I said, these benefits provide food to families to millions of people across the country, and they are threatened to be completely stopped starting November 1st on Saturday. So, like I said, this food bank they're preparing for the worst in case that does come to fruition. But there have been reports that it won't have to come to that, hopefully. But in the meantime, they are purchasing a bunch of food to stockpile in case that does happen. And if you look at the total number of people that rely on them, I believe it is around 45 million people in the United States that receive SNAP benefits, and they are in danger of losing all of that in just a few short days. But KTAL's Hunter Trombetta has more information about the food bank in East Texas and what they're doing in case that happens.
Between persistent inflation and a government shutdown that has left many workers furloughed or even laid off, many families are having to make tough choices when it comes to cutting their expenses, which is why the East Texas Food Bank says they have been seeing more people coming to them for help lately.
I walked through one of our resource centers the other day, and just in 5 minutes, there were like 5 families in there who said, hey, I've never been here before. How does this work?
Now, unless the federal government reopens or emergency funding is allocated, Texas Health and Human Services will not be releasing SNAP benefits starting on November 1st.
Last Thursday, when we kind of saw this coming, we ordered 4 more truckloads of food, additional $200,000 this morning. I've ordered 6 more truckloads of food, so we're up to 10 more truckloads of food, and about $600,000 is what we're spending for that.
According to data compiled by Feeding Texas, in Bowie County alone, there are nearly 15,000 people participating in the SNAP program, roughly half of which are under 18 years old, which is the reality in most East Texas counties.
So over half in all of my counties of the people on SNAP are people who really don't have the ability to work or the opportunity to work, right?
The East Texas Food Bank says they are prepared to pick up the slack left behind by the supplemental program, at least for now.
If this, shutdown runs real long, then obviously there comes some point to where, we're going to be making an appeal to our the generosity of East Texans to say, hey, we need help feeding our neighbors.
The food bank is trying to secure a Texas agricultural surplus funding to cover the cost of the food that they are required to buy in the meantime. But like I said earlier, you can find more details about that story on our website at ktalnews.com. And if you're going trick-or-treating this weekend, it's a big, big weekend for Halloween, and it's not just for kids anymore, that want to go trick-or-treating. It's become super, super popular throughout the country, with adults and people of all ages dressing up and going all out for Halloween. I've seen some of the craziest costumes already for parties that happen like the past weekend, and people who are gearing up with all of their Halloween decorations throughout the neighborhood and just everything. It's really, really cool to see. But if you are planning on either trick-or-treating with your kids or going to a party, there are some health tips that you should know before doing so. And according to the American Red Cross, they released a bunch of different tips for people of all ages to stay safe this Halloween. And one of those involves if your kid wants to dress up, it's best that they use face paint instead of wearing a mask, because it makes them easier to identify so they don't get lost or accidentally get taken by someone and you won't even know if it's them or not because you can't see their face. So if possible, try to use face painting instead of masks, because like I said, it's just way easier to spot them, especially in the dark. You really can't tell who's under there. Even if you know that's my kid, it's still really hard. There's elements at play that make that difficult. And one thing too, in regards to the costumes and wigs potentially, is to check if they are flame resistant, because the last thing you want is for something to end up burning up or catching fire on accident, because there's a lot of like flammable materials that can be present, whether it's spray paint or canned things. Like, just take your precautions and make sure just in case. But another thing to add is reflective tape on your children. If they are dressed up, you can add it to their costumes. But if they don't want that, at the very least, you can add it to their candy buckets that they go around trick-or-treating with, just to make it easier to spot them in the dark. Like I said, it's going to be dark, and not everywhere is going to be well lit in the neighborhood, so it's best to just take that precaution beforehand. And unfortunately, when it comes to wandering the neighborhood, if you're a kid, statistically speaking, children are more than twice as likely to get hit by a car and pass away during Halloween, unfortunately. So, this goes without saying, to make sure that you're with them, you have a parental supervisor with them, but also to make sure that they stay on the sidewalks and only ever cross the street at the street corners. Don't try to go between cars or through like a back alleyway. Like, just make sure that you're using the proper precautions whenever you're walking with your kid, just to avoid anything like that, especially since Halloween, like I was saying earlier, it's becoming more for all ages and adults now too. And there's going to be a lot of parties. That means a lot of alcohol and drinking. So the drivers on the roads, they may not be, fully sober. And, you don't want to chance anything when it comes to that. But also another thing, like I was saying with how it gets so dark, you can give them flashlights to light their way if they can't really see where they're walking. Because the last thing you want, if they're in this big costume and if they have a mask on, they don't have the best visibility, so they might, stumble and fall and then end up hurting themselves, and then, their night is pretty much ruined, because you have to, they were looking forward to this all year, and now they're really, really hurt and they have to be taken care of, so it can just put a damper in things. So be sure to give them at least a light source to light their way while they're walking. But another thing, when it comes to strangers, don't ever go up to a house where the lights are not on. If it's not well lit, just keep on walking. There's plenty more houses for wherever you're going. And don't ever walk into the house with somebody. Just accept the candy at the door and then just be on your way. I mean, that goes without saying, but you never know. And another thing, with the things that you accept with your kids and the candy that they get and toys potentially, make sure you're checking through that to make sure there's nothing opened or loose. If there are, just throw those away. Only ever take the ones that are like fully wrapped, completely sealed. Or if there's a brand of candy that you don't recognize, I wouldn't chance that either. So it's best to just toss those because they're probably going to have a lot, and there's plenty more to choose from. Let's just say that. But if you're hosting trick-or-treaters at your house, if you're staying in and you want to hand out candy to people, make sure that your house is well lit, and then the sidewalks and the walkways up to the door are all cleared of like leaves or other debris. So like I was saying, kids don't trip and fall in their costumes, because that's the last thing that you want, is to be responsible for that, essentially, or have an unsafe, not welcoming house for them to go trick-or-treating to. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the kids and just them having fun and just pretending to be their favorite character or a monster, just let them have fun with it. So, but if you're an adult and you're going to a party or you're hosting a party, just know that most, alcohol-related incidents in Halloween involves impaired drivers, and that skyrockets when it comes to Halloween. The amount of alcohol-related traffic incidents during Halloween weekend, it just spikes because all these parties and you're drinking. So if you're hosting a party, make sure that you're collecting keys at the door to make sure nobody is driving drunk, and if they want their keys on their way out, just make sure that they're okay to go. If not, make sure you have plans for them to either stay the night at your place or have a ride share set up or a designated driver, or if worst comes to worst, you can bring them home if you're sober and you're not drinking. It's just good to have a plan in mind when it comes to all of that. But if you have a pet at home, make sure you keep them away from the candy. If you do put them in a costume and they're kind of walking around the party, just make sure that all candy, chocolate, anything like that is out of reach, because it is super, super toxic for pets, especially dogs. So just make sure that they're okay, especially if they're in a costume. Make sure they're comfortable. It doesn't limit their movement or anything. Just make sure they're good to go and well taken care of, because it can be easy to just forget about them and all the chaos in the party and everything. So, but if you plan to trick or treat with your kids and you're just walking around the neighborhood, walking has been shown in several studies that it can provide immense benefits. But one in particular, published in the Annals of Internal Medicine, says that the longer you walk is better for you, instead of just trying to accumulate steps in a short amount of time. If you were to walk for 15 minutes or longer, that provides many, many more benefits than if you were to just walk a bunch of steps for less than 5 minutes. And the reason for this is because your body kicks into this, this exercise mode. And that's when your body starts changing temperature and everything is engaged and operational in order for you to receive the most benefits. Because if you're just walking for less than 5 minutes in a certain time period, it's really not going to do a whole lot for you, because your body is not acclimated to that yet. It needs to gear up and pretty much wake up in order to get things flowing and functioning. So, but the study that I mentioned, they found that the people who took most of their daily steps within a 15-minute or longer period had a lower risk of heart disease and death than those who went on several shorter walks. And the people that saw the most benefit were the adults who were not as active, but then were all of a sudden active again, and and went for a long time, and they showed the greatest gains from that health-wise. And the study was conducted on over 33,000 adults with an average age of 62, and this info was collected from 2013 to 2015, and they pretty much, for a 3 to 7 day period, they wore this accelerometer on their wrist that tracked their physical activity, and they were split up into 4 groups. The first group was those who went less than 5 minutes, and then the second one was 5 to 10 minutes. The third one was 10 to 15, and then the fourth group was 15 or longer in terms of exercise while walking. And then almost a decade later, they followed up with these participants, and it showed that the group that went 15 minutes or longer in that period showed the lowest likelihood of death or heart disease, whereas less than 5 minutes, they showed the highest risk for both of those, unfortunately. But I know there's a lot of common myths out there when it comes to exercise where it's like, oh, make sure you get at least 10,000 steps a day. But that's really just like a marketing ploy to sell, fitness trackers on your wrist or health or exercise snacks, whatever that they're advertising these days. But it's really not because once you get to 10,000 steps, you really don't see that much benefit, because the longer you walk if you go from 0 to 5,000 steps, that's a greater increase in health benefits than it would be from 5,000 to 10,000, because then you start getting diminishing returns, essentially. So the whole 10,000 steps thing, I mean, sure, it's good that you're getting that many steps, but at the end of the day, like, it's a little bit too much for you to see like long-term benefits for it to be worth your time. I'd probably shoot for maybe like the 5,000 to 7,000 range personally, because that's, like I said, that's where you would see the most benefits from the get-go, from starting from 0 to 5,000. But if you can't get that many, don't sweat, because I mean, any amount of steps is more than 0. So it's better than doing nothing, essentially. So that's what I would recommend. I mean, I'm not a fitness instructor by any means, but that's just based on the research and the study that I was reading, that's just seems to be the common thought process when it comes to approaching exercise, especially when walking. It's something that you can do pretty much anywhere, anytime, and you don't need any equipment at all. You just get up and go, and it can just be around your house or even just around your neighborhood. You can walk a block back and forth. It can be anywhere you want, and it can provide so many health benefits, like I was saying, and just reduce the risk of heart disease and death. And heart disease, for those of you who didn't know, is the #1 killer of men and women in the United States. So any chance you have to reduce that risk of developing it is a plus, in my opinion. So get out there and go walking, whether it's, like I said, through your neighborhood, through your house, wherever you want. It can be anywhere. It's free, no equipment required. So I would recommend going out there. But as I was saying earlier about the science behind the amount of time that you walk, your body is adapting and shifting from rest mode to exercise mode. And this takes time, like I was saying. So if you're going for less than 5 minutes, it's not enough time for your body to gear up and get acclimated to that. It needs all systems engaged and to be fully operational for it to actually start working and providing those health benefits to you. And this involves an increase in body temperature, and it gets blood flowing to all of your muscles, especially your leg muscles. If you've been sitting all day, you need to get up and stretch and walk around just to get the blood flowing down to the rest of your body. From time to time, it's good to do that. Just take a break and just walk around, and it can be an immense benefit to you and just reduce your overall risk of not just heart disease, but death in general with any health-related condition. And it's never too late to start. If you are an elderly person or middle-aged and you haven't exercised in a while and you want to get back into it, it's never too late to start, because like I was saying earlier with the study, the average age of the participants were 62 years old. So that's a good start, that's a good idea of what it takes to get there, because if you're someone who isn't motivated to do so because, I haven't done that in forever, it's never too late to start, because the same thing that can happen to you at 20 years old when it comes to physiological adaptations in your body, the same thing that happens to a 20-year-old is going to happen to a 60-year-old. So you might as well get up and reduce your risk, especially if as you get older and you reach your 60s, that's, if you're 60 years old, you might already bear signs of heart disease. And, this is in order to combat that, you need to develop a walking plan or a regimen, just a routine that gets you going. And if you aren't motivated, I get it, but the benefits alone should be enough to, get you up off your feet and think, oh, maybe I'll go walk today. I'll walk around the block a few times just to get things moving and get going. Because, think about if you have children, you have grandchildren, you want to be a part of their lives for as long as possible, obviously. So if you can do your part and reduce your risk of heart disease, which again is the #1 killer of men and women in the United States, that alone would shake me to my core. So I would definitely get up and moving, because it can, like I was saying, I keep stressing the amount of health benefits that come with just walking, whether it's for just 15 minutes. That's all it takes. And that's, you can do that twice a day or just once a day. Like, it doesn't matter. As long as you're getting up and moving, doesn't matter how many steps you take, just more, any amount is better than none, like I said. But that's all I have today on KTAL News Now. Be sure to follow us on our social medias at KTAL News. You can also follow us on our YouTube page at KTAL News, where we post all of our previous editions of KTAL News Now. And be sure to join us tomorrow for another edition where we'll look ahead to some weekend events and preview some Thursday night football for tomorrow going on in the NFL. But for now, I'm Anthony Mocklin. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining us.